Gentlemen, we are back for some more F1 23 gameplay. Wanted to thank Codemasters and EA for giving me this opportunity to play the game early. I'm excited to jump back into the game and jump on another track and have another race, so that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And if you are enjoying these early F1 23 gameplay videos, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. And let's jump straight into it. So if you didn't already know, we got some new graphics, new start screen, new user interface, and we're going to open up Grand Prix mode to jump into another race, and this time we're going to be doing Bahrain with Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. The Ferrari has had its livery updated, but the model itself just seems to be the FOM car at this point in time, so expect changes to this car before the game launch, and just note that this is not the final build of the game. It is still in development. And even the second beta version is ahead of this build when it comes to comparing the handling model and other features of the game. But we're going to be doing 110% AI, making some adjustments to the setup. I did find it a little bit more difficult to find the sweet spot in the setup at Bahrain. Keep in mind that we're not using equal cars anymore. We'll be doing the realistic performance of each car. But to summarize briefly, the setup has been updated so that there's more increments on the front suspension, rear suspension, the roll bars, and the ride height, so you've got more fine-tuning capability when it comes to your setup, as well as your tires. You can adjust the tire pressures a lot more accurately now. And you'll also notice with the ride height, it has a limit of 30. That means that's as low as you can go, and I guess that's in line with the regulations that are currently in F1 as well. So now that we are done with fine-tuning the setup and trying to make it a bit more stable, let's jump straight into the race. You'll notice that the cutscenes are pretty much similar, but what is impressive is the lighting of Bahrain at nighttime. The lights seem to have got a lot more volume or density from the floodlights themselves, and it just makes it look a whole lot more realistic. We dropped the fuel load down to 29 laps. We don't exactly know what the fuel load is going to be like, but let's hope for a safety car if it is high. But it's 5 lights, and away we go for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we have gotten off to a decent start in comparison to the AI, who is on a softer compound of tyre. And if you didn't already notice, the optimal clutch biting point for the start of the race is about the halfway mark instead of the quarter that F1 22 was. We made a massive dive bomb on the AI. They're a lot more conservative this year with how they go into turn 1 at each race. They're a lot less aggressive, but we have made our way up into P15 as Sargent is looking to make a move on us, but we have that covered off as we were thinking of trying to get an overlap on Piastri here, being one of the new drivers added to the game alongside Sargent and Nick De Vries, as well as Hulkenberg actually returning for this season. And Piastri's left it all wide open for us to capitalize on, and we have the other rookie right in front of us who we'll be planning to get in front of as soon as possible. All these guys seem to be on the mediums in front of us, just Sargent, who is in 16th place behind on the soft so far. So they may be doing the 2-stop. We'll be doing the 1-stop and going onto the hard tires towards the end of the race. Bahrain is notoriously heavy on the tire wear, so it would be a good comparison to see if that is also the case on this year's game. The texture of the tires also feels a bit different. The characteristics are slightly different as well. When you have a moment of oversteer, there's a lot more warning and time to react to catch it in time and prevent yourself from spinning, which is something that will be welcomed among a lot of players, I feel, in the F1 community. And I feel this year the main skill gap between players will come from the braking, as in this point in time you need a much higher brake bias or a much further forward brake bias to prevent the rear axle from locking. Speaking of braking, let's try and outbrake De Vries, who's actually made a little bit of contact with us heading into turn 1, but we managed to get the job done. And it is Albon up next in the Williams, who's performing pretty well for a Williams, I must say. Maybe the Williams isn't that bad on the performance index, but we'll have to wait and see when the game is launched. We don't have DRS for this pit straight, but it has been enabled for this lap, so if we're going to make a move into turn 1 here, it'll have to be without the assistance of DRS and just with some later braking, and it seems a lot more cooperation from the AI in comparison to last year's AI. We are able to make the move up into P12, and it is without a doubt way more satisfying to battle with the AI as we now look to make the move on Sonoda in the same corner, seems to be our new favorite destination for overtaking is turn 1, as it was in Hungary. We have K-Mag up next with Bottas, giving him a bit of a tow with DRS, so we'll be looking to try and get past K-Mag as soon as possible by trying to do the move that Alonso did to Hamilton here in the exact same corner, and we actually managed to pull it off. I don't think that would have been possible with the F122 AI. I think there just would have been a lot less cooperation. We're unable to do it to Bottas this time around, but we'll be trying to get past him probably on the pit straight and utilize the DRS while we still can. We're not going to make the move just yet. We'll be looking to make the move on the pit straight so he can't retaliate, and then we get the benefit of the longer DRS zone. He's going defensive into this corner, so we're going to open it up as much as possible. Cut to the inside and we get a decent drive out of the final corner. No traffic in front of us to hold us back, and DRS wide open to blast past Bottas. And there's not much he can do about that. We've got Gasly up next. That's about a 4-second gap, so we're going to try and reel him in. And we've got a yellow flag. And it looks like Esteban Ocon is out of the race. And the engineer just said that George Russell had an issue with his car, so he might be going slow as well. As we come into the pits for lap 12, we're going to do an undercut to try and get closer to Gasly. I will say this UI that's right in the middle of the screen blocks out a lot of the views, so I don't really know when to click the button to turn in, and I think it would be better if it was more transparent, but I can easily move that up using the customizer for the UI, so it's not that big of a deal, but it does get in the way of timing your pit stop. Even with that said, we managed to get away with a good pit stop. We're dropped down to P17, but we've got a lot of other people in front of us that are yet to make their pit stop, and we'll see if it's possible to do the undercut with the hard tires that usually take a fair amount of time to warm up. They take a bit of time to switch on before you can get the most out of them, so the grip's fairly limited. We got George Russell DNFing from this race, and that is the second DNF in 2 races for him, so not having much luck at all with the short amount of time that I've spent on F123 so far. It's lap 14, we've got some stoppers. I think it's Aston Martin and a Haas in the pits. That's promoted us up into P14 with the retirement of George Russell. And on the next lap, we had a few more stoppers, and Gasly has finally come out of the pits just in front of us. So we've made a lot of ground on Gasly, closed up about 3 seconds worth of time just in a couple of laps from the undercut. So it was well worth trying the undercut in this scenario. We're going to go up the inside of Gasly, and he's actually helped us there, because usually they'd just turn straight in and we would have been spinning around. But Gasly, with this new AI, had the awareness to not turn in on us, and we managed to get through there with minimal contact, no damage. And it looks like Norris and Zhou are battling up ahead. I think Zhou still has to make his pit stop because he is on the medium tire. And surely enough, he does pull away into the pits on lap 15, going on to lap 16 now. We've got Gasly still in hot pursuit, and we've actually run out of battery pretty much, and that's going to leave us vulnerable as Gasly goes down the inside of turn 1, and we're pretty much right on the back of Norris now, so I wouldn't be surprised if Gasly picks up the DRS on Norris, and it looks like we'll have the DRS on Gasly as well, so this is going to give us another opportunity to come back in this race at Gasly, and we're going to go back up the inside at turn 4, and we do get the move done. But what I'm worried about right now is Norris slipping out of that DRS zone. To add even more trouble on that, we're starting to run out of fuel, so we're going to have to start conserving towards the end of this race, and because we didn't manage to stay in the DRS zone, that's left us completely vulnerable once again to Gasly, who's gotten in front well before the braking zone of turn 1. So I think the game plan now is to just let Gasly drag us along to Norris, and then that way we can have a chance at getting both of them later on in the race. Man, there's been so much action in this race, I barely had any time to soak in the atmosphere of the new graphics, the new lighting, and to be fair, even with a pretty stable setup, I was having a hard time finding the sweet spot in this Ferrari, and especially in the braking zones, it slides around a lot more, but you can react and catch the car when it starts to slide around. As Norris has lost a position to Gasly, they are battling up ahead, and we're going to try and latch back onto the back of these guys. As you can see, the sliding in the double left-hander, one of the most difficult corners on the entire calendar even. There's a lot of sliding that goes around under braking, and you need to keep that under control to make sure the fronts don't lock and the rears don't lock, and the most you can really do with that is adjust the bias as we have a lot more battling going on up ahead. Norris all over the back of Gasly, looking to make a move in the turn 4 with the DRS zone, and he's going to try and make the move around the outside this time. We're going to try and follow Norris here, or maybe we'll even stay on Gasly's racing line so we can pull in behind him and leave Norris out to dry. And we have, and we managed to bring ourselves up into P6. Now the real issue is going to be trying to keep Norris behind, as we have barely any battery. And as you can see, Norris is coming straight back at us. We have the assistance of DRS, as Gasly has to tough it out by dragging both Norris and ourselves without any DRS. But now that we've held off Norris, we have another problem looming over us, and that is our fuel consumption. We are down 0.2 laps of fuel at this point in the race, with only around 7 laps to go. We're all over the back of Gasly, and we can use his DRS and slipstream to pull us along, but we have to really start conserving that fuel. And as you can see, all this lifting, coasting into the corners is helping out a lot, as we've already dropped it down to 0.1 laps of fuel that is needed. And now that we've actually used the DRS to go around the outside of Gasly and move up into P5, we're going to park the bus and try to save as much fuel through the corners, because it's a lot harder for the AI or anyone in general to overtake through the corners. And the game plan is just before the pit straight where the DRS is active, we're going to let Gasly back through so we get the DRS back on him and conserve even more fuel. As he tried to go around the outside there, it wasn't going to happen, and he got caught on the marbles. This year, the marbles are pretty effective at making your car lose grip, and you'll notice whenever I go slightly off the racing line, you can see the animation of picking up marbles on either of the front tires, and that does hamper your ability to get the car turned in, and maybe that's even contributing to the braking balance problem, as I'm having a hard time this race to get the car stopped and get it to the apex of the corner. Gasly's going to take a slightly defensive line through here. I didn't really want to go up the inside and stay on the marbles for too long. Luckily for us, the marbles seem to go away shortly after you return to the racing line again. But we're just going to keep on using Gasly here to pull us along and save as much fuel as possible. As you can see, lifting, coasting into the final corner, and then just absolutely exploiting the DRS to make sure we're in a surplus of fuel now, which we are green. But because of the nature of the circuit being high on tire wear and high on fuel consumption, we're going to just park the bus for a couple more times. And especially now that our tires are very average, they are sliding around a lot, it might not be the baddest idea to try and hold Gasly up a little bit here, and then just use up the rest of the tires and the rest of the fuel on the last lap of the race, so Gasly can't retaliate when he gets the DRS on us. That is the game plan. But I've been pretty happy with where I've managed to get the car so far. We're looking at trying to finish in P5 as long as we don't make any mistakes on the last lap of the race when we do try to make the move on Gasly. Unfortunately, don't think there was any chance for us to catch our teammate, and the Red Bulls were just absolutely untouchable with realistic performance on, so there was no way we were going to get anywhere near those guys for this race. And I do think, even though the DRS was extremely beneficial for me to save fuel on this occasion, it can definitely harm your engine performance in the way of engine temperatures overheating, and that is something that will definitely affect you in career mode if you're trying to keep your engine wear low, if your engine keeps overheating when you're battling other cars. But we are on to the last lap of the race, and this is where we are looking to make our move stick on Gasly and try to do it in a way in which he can't get us back on the straight with DRS. And I think our best opportunity to do this will be going into turn 4 here, as Gasly goes defensive, but there is absolutely nothing he can do. We have a surplus of fuel. We have plenty to burn to the end of this race, which is only 2 more sectors to go, and all we need to do now is just not make any mistakes, which is easier said than done. And if we can bring it home in 5th, that is pretty decent by my standards, as Verstappen comes across the line to celebrate by going up against the pit wall as he has won the race. But even with Fanatec issues, that is with this build of the game that's already been fixed, and Gasly pushing us all the way to the line, we are going to bring it home after starting from the back of the grid in last place on this 50% race. No safety cars, surprisingly. Red flags have been disabled for this version of the game, so we won't get to try that out until we get a later build, and we do in fact get driver of the day. The characters in the cutscenes look a lot better than they did in F1 22, particularly the hair. It looks a lot more realistic now. some slightly new cutscenes as well, but nothing too drastically different. My main takeaways from this game so far is a much improved handling model. The braking has a lot more of a skill gap involved in it now. The graphics look much improved and the AI is so much better in comparison to last year's game. They are a lot more aware, and the only thing that I would change about them is making them slightly more aggressive on lap 1. If you enjoyed this video, it means a lot to me if you could leave a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe. Let me know in the comments section below if you are excited for F1 23 or what you think they could do to improve the game. Anyways, that is your lot for now, and I'll see you all very soon for some more F1 23 gameplay.